Hello, everyone. My name is Emily Eldridge. I am the host of Inner Work for Greater Good. I'm sorry, I just got off of another Zoom, so I haven't changed my name. I'll change it. It is Emily Eldridge at Change Light. There we go. Rename. Here we go. Now we're ready to go. Emily Eldridge. I know it's sort of like a mess sometimes, but I'm really not that much of a mess. I'm just not always, I've got other stuff going on. But I'm so happy to be here again this week with you. My name is Emily Eldridge. I am the founder of Change Light, Inner Work for Greater Good, hence the name of the show, and the creator of the Change Light system, which is all about accelerating your ability to feel good and do good so you can make a bigger difference in the world just by being who you are and doing what you do. This week I want to talk about something that came to me that I realize is something I do for myself, and I teach people, remind people to do for themselves as well. And I figured I'd share it with you. And that has to do with two words: patient and gentle. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, sometimes when we're struggling, we're dealing with maybe we're dealing with a crisis, or maybe we're dealing with a tough emotion, or we're having a rough day, or we're going through a rough period of our lives. Sometimes people will say, well, you need to be patient with yourself, or you need to be patient. And then other times people might say, well, you need to be gentle with yourself. I like to put those two together and say that really something that we definitely need more of, and especially when it comes to inner work, is be patient and gentle with ourselves. So this is something that I frequently remind myself. Now, why are these two words really important, and what does this mean? So being patient. So in my previous episode, I talked about how so often we're in such a hurry. There's this sense of urgency in the world, as though like everything's going to come crashing down if we're not in a hurry, if we're not getting things done quickly. It's like people are always expecting things, and there's deadlines, and there are all kinds of reminders around us that we need to hurry up, or that we somehow even need to be in a rush. I live in New York City. So you talk about a rushed city. There are certain areas that, it feels like everyone's in a rush, or you've got to catch that train or that subway or that bus. Things go on a particular schedule. And so there's certainly a lot of reminders for us in our world that say, well, you need to hurry up, and you need to move faster. But something I said in last week's episode was basically like, well, where is that really coming from? Because, is nature trying to get us to hurry up? Or where's that really coming from? And I did talk about it in terms of a like societal point of view, is that a lot of times we're really steeped in this need to, the sense of urgency, but how so much of it is artificial. I understand that we've got schedules and we've got deadlines to meet, or we've got, maybe children that need our attention, or older, adults, our parents, or whoever who need things, or maybe there are those of us who are very impact oriented, and they're, you look at the situation with the climate and the climate crisis and all of this. And there are certain situations that are definitely urgent. If you are an ER doctor or a paramedic, yes, you've got to get to that patient to get them to the hospital, to save their life. So there are certain circumstances where absolutely urgency is important, and speed it, hurrying to achieve that mission or that goal or save that person's life is really, really important. But in a lot of our lives, and especially I'm always talking about your inner life and what's going on inside, because what's going on inside greatly impacts how we perceive what's going on around us, how we deal with it, how we feel within, how we feel about ourselves, how we feel towards others. And so what happens though too is that we can then internalize that external sense of urgency and impatience and hurry up, and we tend to apply it to ourselves. So this is, but however, I would say, well, so this is why the word patient is so important when it comes to us dealing and working with ourselves and being present with ourselves and processing our emotions, being patient. What I've found is that when it comes to certain emotional having certain emotional shifts or emotional healing, that actually being impatient with ourselves doesn't work. Not only does it not work, it makes it worse. Why is that? Because, and I've talked about this in terms of the physics of emotion. So in the past, I've talked about how when we have an emotion that comes up, oftentimes, there's that unconscious usually, but that reaction of like, I don't want to feel this way, and trying to push down on it or push against it or struggle with it in some form or another. But what happens is that, does that make the emotion magically disappear? No. In fact, it often makes it worse. It causes that emotion or that feeling or that energy to push back. And why is that? This is just a summary of my whole physics of emotion thing. Because it's like Newton's third law. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So if we push against that action, we're going to get all this resistance. And I'm talking in energetic terms. I'm talking in emotional terms. I understand that certain things need to be resisted against in society, etc. I get that. But we're talking internally. And so internally, if you've got that pressure, then it's going to make it, it's just going to fight back. So when we're impatient with some part of us, like, so if you think of impatience, like I'm impatient with this feeling and I just want to get it out, right? What are you doing? You're trying to push it out. Well, what's going to happen? It's going to push back, and you're going to end up in a struggle with yourself, an emotional and energetic struggle inside. And that's just going to make it worse. So trying to hurry our own self-work, our own inner work, trying to speed up the process so that we, get rid of this feeling or we're free of that block or whatever. In my experience, I have found that doesn't work. It makes it worse. Now, I'm not saying don't take responsibility for what's going on inside. I am not saying don't take certain actions to try to shift those feelings. Of course, that's what my work is about. People come to me because they're struggling with an insecurity or an inner critic or, wound or something. And they're like, I am so sick and tired of this. I want to be free of this. And I take them to the work and we heal that part or those parts that they're struggling with. And so, yes, but however, you'll find, like if you ever work with me as a client, you'll see I don't try to rush the process. If anything, I've found that it backfires. There's no point in me trying to rush that person to hurry up and to get that result, because it's just going to create resistance. That part or they will feel some kind of pressure from me. And then what's the automatic response is usually to push back. And so that's why being patient when it comes to our own emotional well-being, our own inner work, when it comes to how we're feeling, when it comes to blocks, when it comes to triggers, when it comes to things that we're struggling with or that are causing us stress or pain on the inside, it's really important to be very, very patient with ourselves. So being patient with yourself is really important. But there's another word. And that other word I love to use is gentle. So some people might also use the word kind, but I really like the word gentle because it implies that you're being kind, like soft and kind with yourself. Consider why the word gentle is so important. So, well, let's just take it from that whole pushing back perspective. Is this a gentle thing? Is this us being gentle with ourselves? No, this is us being hard on ourselves. This is us pushing ourselves or pressuring ourselves or struggling with ourselves or suppressing ourselves. That's not gentle. Being gentle means not being hard on yourself. What's the opposite? It's like being hard, when you're hard on someone or when you're gentle on someone, right? These are opposites. And a lot of times people will come to me in such states of intense inner struggle or chronic stress or whatever, because they're being so hard on themselves, or a part of them is being hard on them, an inner critic, right? Those are the ones that tend to be hard on us. Now, where did we learn to be hard on ourselves? Oftentimes from our environments, from expectations that were put on us. But then also sometimes, I've met people who are like, no, my parents were really nice to me. I'm the one who's hard on myself. I'm the one who's self-critical. So for whatever reason, they've got parts inside of them that are being hard on them, that are being, extra pressuring or extra like nitpicky or extra suppressing or oppressive. And so that's where the being hard on, so from that inner critic perspective, does that work? Does that really work for us to be hard on ourselves? And that's where sometimes, and this is where it's an interesting moment, because sometimes we do have to step back and question, is this working? Because what often happens is we often learn, whether we're watching other people and the way they treat themselves or the way they treat us or they treat other people. So many of us take on the belief that somehow criticizing ourselves is a way to get us to change, or being criticized. Criticism is somehow a motivation for change. And it can't, I wouldn't say criticism is the thing. Critiquing or constructive feedback might be a better way. Criticism, though, often implies that you're criticizing, you're judging, you're being awful, you're being mean. I don't find that that's actually the most effective at all way of affecting change. If anything, it's a form of control of self or control of others. But critiquing, obviously having standards and holding people to higher standards and helping them get there and saying, well, here's where you fell short. This can be very, very helpful. But criticism is where there is implied in that hardness, that judgment, that negativity. And so by contrast, so that's being hard on ourselves. By contrast, when we're gentle with ourselves, when we apply a soft pressure, what happens is a softness, there's a soft response. So if you apply a hardness, you're going to get a hard response somewhere or another. You might have some parts of you that comply with that hardness and do sort of just try to comply with whatever is coming at them. But then you'll have other parts that will push back. And that's where you're going to keep that struggle. So instead, what's the answer? Is it to be hard on ourselves? No, it's to be gentle, soft and kind, gentle with ourselves. Do not apply a hard pressure, but a soft, just a softness and a kindness. That is where you can get real effective results, especially when it comes to inner work. So I'm always talking in terms of what works. I am not interested in just doing something because it's nice. No, I'm like, what works? This is what works. Being patient and gentle with ourselves. Now, if you're like me, you probably have a part of you that wants to push back against that. No, we've got to hurry this up. We've got to, and in that case, then be patient and gentle with that part and say, okay, and notice it, as I've talked about in many times, like listen to it, turn towards it, understand it, figure out where it's coming from, because it may be coming from that old approach that's all about, no, you've got to hurry this up. We've got all these fears. We've got all these stresses. We've got all these things we've got to do. But again, does it actually work for you to then be hard on yourself, to put pressure on yourself, and to just, okay, and go with what that part is telling you to do that's just so fast or hard driving or whatever it is. So again, that's where you might notice that when you're saying, well, I want to be patient and gentle with myself, you might notice that there are parts of you that push back against that are like, no, no, no. But in that case, it's probably because they're carrying a lot of fear, and because they think that there's some kind of better result is going to come from, something better is going to result from hurrying this up or, pushing this forward. And I'm not going to say, there may be times when, yes, that can be the approach, the best approach. But I would say as a whole, in general, in our lives, in my experience, that is not the most effective approach if you want to live a life that feels good and joyful and free and good for you, that's not driven by stress and fear. Because when we let those stressed out, fearful, pressuring, whatever parts of us prevail, then that's how we'll tend to live our lives. And from my experience, that is not a recipe for joy. That is not a recipe for peace. So in my experience, the recipe for peace, or a big part of, a big reminder that we should have, or at least I know it works for me, okay, is be patient and gentle with yourself. Don't try to push this too hard. Don't try to get some inner shift faster than it's ready than it's ready for. Sometimes there are parts of us that need that patience. They need that gentleness. In fact, most of the times, that's what those parts need from us. They need us to be kind and soft and gentle with them. And by doing that, we're being that way with ourselves. So I have a few questions to consider. Does our world, when it comes to patient, does our world need to speed up? Is that really what our world needs, for us to speed up and get faster? I mean, this is where we're talking about in terms of how we treat ourselves and how it affects the world. Does it really need us to speed up? No. Our world needs to slow down. That's what our world needs. Does our world need to be harder and crueler? In other words, less gentle? No. Our world needs to be more kind and gentle. And would you agree? We need a kinder and gentler and softer world that's good for all. So, question to ask yourself: how am I serving the world by being impatient with and hard on myself? How does it serve the world for me to treat myself this way? Does it serve the world? How does it actually impact how I show up for others and the difference that I make? Does it make it better? Or in the long term, does it make it worse? Something to consider. And also, a final question: how am I serving myself by being impatient with and hard on myself? How am I really serving myself? How does that really serve me to treat myself that way? Another way of asking this is: does it work? Is it working? I would argue that it's probably not. That maybe in the moment it gets you more motivated, maybe, but long term, it can really lead to burnout and way too much stress and inner struggle than it's really worth. So those are just some things to consider. Consider, what is it doing to me? My being hard and impatient with myself. And what if, rather than being impatient and hard on myself or on yourself, what if you were to be patient and gentle with yourself? What if you were to take a different approach? If the other one isn't working, what if you were to try a different approach? See what happens. All right. So that's what I got for you today. I hope it was helpful. As always, I'm Emily Eldridge. I'm at changelight.world. Please do check us out. We have some big announcements coming. We have some big releases coming, launch. I won't tell you the specifics yet because we haven't officially announced it yet, but just know, wait for it. Follow us on Instagram, follow us on Facebook, changelight.world, look for us. All right. And with that, I hope this has been helpful. Be patient and gentle with yourself. Be patient and gentle. Let that be a new mantra: patient and gentle. Ooh, see how notice even just saying it made me relax. Patient and gentle with yourself. And let me know how it goes. You can always email me. All right. I will see you.